Honorable Maute.
Greetings to the Commander-in-Chief and President of the EFF, Commissars and Fighters. The EFF rejects the 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposals as tabled by the Minister of Finance and supported by the Standing Committee on Finance, where members of the former liberation movement were led and supervised by the Racist Democratic Alliance. Speaker, we are standing here today for the second time to debate this fiscal framework and revenue proposal because the original report was adopted unprocedurally. We warned you, you ignored us. You allowed the House to adopt the report that was procedurally illegal despite our advice. You allowed a framework that sought to increase VAT from 15% to 15.5%, an increase profusely rejected by almost all political parties except for the ANC, Action SA, and the so-called GNU parties. You allowed a report that places more tax burden on the working class by failing to adjust personal income tax brackets in line with inflation, effectively pushing middle-income earners into higher tax brackets without them anymore in real terms. You, Madam Speaker, presided over a House that adopted the fiscal framework report without any clear statement on whether we accepted or amended the fiscal framework and revenue proposals in violation of Section 6 of the Money Bills Amendment Procedure and Related Matters Act, Act 9 of 2009. It took the EFF to approach the Western Cape High Court to stop the VAT increase. If it were not for the EFF, South Africans would already be paying 15.5% VAT today. The people of South Africa know now, without any doubt, that the EFF is the only dependable tool in the hands of the poor and the working class. Now we are presented with a revised fiscal framework. Firstly, the Minister of Finance, having failed to increase VAT, has now imposed an increase in fuel taxes without even bringing a bill to Parliament. This tax is already in effect. It is a violation of the basic constitutional principle that no tax may be imposed without the authority of legislation. We must be very clear. We reject the fuel levy increase in its entirety. This increase in the fuel levy is not just an attack on motorists, it is a direct assault on the poor. The fuel levy is a regressive tax. It affects everyone, especially the poor and the working class, who are already under immense pressure from the rising cost of living. When fuel prices go up, transport costs increase, food prices rise, and basic goods become more expensive. In South Africa, where millions rely on public transport and informal sector trade, the knock-on effect on fuel taxes are devastating. This happens at a time when 18.2 million people depend on government for grants. The decision will plunge more households into poverty, it will increase hunger, it will erode what little purchasing power remains for low-income families. And it was done without parliamentary approval. We will not accept taxation without representation. We will continue to fight this abuse of executive power, including through the courts. The Minister of Finance does not have the authority to impose taxes without legislative approval. This is an overreach. Secondly, the revised fiscal framework once again fails to adjust personal income tax brackets in line with inflation. This is a silent tax increase aimed at extracting 16.7 billion rands from already overburdened workers in a country where wage growth has collapsed. Thirdly, this framework says nothing about the crisis of municipalities. Majority of them are collapsing under financial distress. Service delivery to our people has come to a standstill. This budget proposes no bailout, no solution, no response, just silence. Lastly, and most dangerously, this budget is tabled in the middle of a prolonged economic crisis, yet it offers no plan to address the crisis. There is no stimulus package, no bold intervention, no new direction. According to the expanded definition of unemployment, 42% of South Africans are unemployed. That is almost 1 in every 2 people. The committee refused to use this figure and instead relied on the narrow definition of 32%, deliberately hiding the scale of the crisis. Many of the unemployed have given up hope of ever finding work. However, they remain unemployed and their suffering is real. Instead of creating jobs, the former liberation movement now listens to the CEO of Capitec Bank, a loan shark masquerading as a bank who wants to redefine unemployment to reduce the number on paper instead of reducing unemployment in reality. Just last week, Stats SA reported that the economy grew by only 0.1% in the first quarter of 2025. That is not growth, that is stagnation. It is proof that the National Treasury and the GNU have neither the capacity nor the political will to fix the economy. In response to this crisis, the EFF went to the Standing Committee and made clear, progressive, and implementable proposals. We proposed an urgent economic stimulus package of 500 billion, like we did during COVID-19, to revive growth, restore confidence in the economy, and reindustrialize. We proposed an immediate 4 billion rand increase in funding to SARS, not over the medium term, but this year, so that SARS is able to collect the more than 800 billion owed to the state. We proposed new taxes, wealth tax, apartheid tax, luxury land holding tax, because the people who gained from apartheid continue to live comfortably, while the children of the oppressed live in squalor. We showed that the fuel levy is regressive, more so than VAT. One study from Kenya demonstrated that 1% in fuel tax led to a 7% increase in food prices. That is cruelty this government is now defending. But all our proposals were rejected. The GNU is obsessed with budget cuts, obsessed with pleasing rating agencies,
Honourable Member, your time is up.
Expenditure on education,
Honourable Hadebe,
healthcare and social grants. We reject this fiscal framework.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The Inkatha Freedom Party acknowledges the complex economic and fiscal environment in which the 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposals were tabled. We commend the Standing Committee on Finance for the extensive engagement with stakeholders, statutory institutions, and the broader public. South Africa is grappling with stagnant economic growth, a worsening debt burden, and crisis levels of unemployment and inequality. We welcome the fact that the fiscal framework maintains allocations to critical services such as education, healthcare, and social grants, which are central to our pro-poor stance. We particularly commend the additional fund for education, preserving early childhood development and teacher employment, allocation for the employment of doctors and healthcare workers, and the continuation of social grants, including the SRD grant, albeit with concern about its limited value. We support the infrastructure investment as this aligns with the party's call for state-led, labor-intensive infrastructure development to stimulate jobs and growth, particularly in rural and underdeveloped areas. The reversal of the proposed VAT increase is consistent with our advocacy for protecting the purchasing power of the poor and working class households. The additional allocation to SARS aimed at improving tax compliance and boosting revenue collection is a positive measure, especially if it means avoiding new regressive taxes in the future. However, we also note serious shortcomings that cannot be ignored. The withdrawal of the proposed expansion of zero-rated food items is a missed opportunity to provide targeted relief to the poorest households amid high food inflation. The non-adjustment of personal income tax bracket further erodes the disposable income of the working class, effectively implementing a stealth tax. These are regressive measures that undermine the pro-poor intentions claimed by the framework and risk worsening inequality at the time when our people are already under immense financial strain. Strengthening local government is a core pillar of the IFP's governance vision. We are encouraged that fiscal allocation are beginning to reflect this decentralization agenda, which must include improved municipal revenue collection, the professionalization of local administrations, and the enhanced delivery of basic services. A well-resourced and functional local government is key to restoring trust and accountability in the state, especially in rural and historically neglected communities. However, Honourable Speaker, this budget offers moments of encouragement, particularly in its protection of frontline social services and renewed commitment to infrastructure-led growth. However, it also contains contradictions, measures that may reverse gains in poverty reduction and intensify cost of living pressures on the poor. The IFP reiterates our call for a budget that is fiscally responsible but not austerity driven, pro-poor and employment focused, and family anchored in transparency, equity, and inclusive growth. We remain committed to the constructive engagement and rigorous oversight in the interest of all South Africans. The IFP accepts the report. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Souls.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Greetings in the wonderful name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Noinke ahuniki. Proverbs chapter number 27, verse 17. It says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. This budget has tested the GNU to the limit. Many coalition governments like Germany has fell apart because of budget differences. Our GNU is solid. Our government passed its first and hardest test. Those amongst us here that wants the finance minister to be removed, you are living in green and red dreamland. The Minister of Finance is going nowhere. We support you, Honorable Minister. But the opposition is right when they say that the GNU is fighting. The GNU is fighting, but they are not fighting each other. Through this fiscal framework and revenue proposal, it shows that the GNU is not fighting each other. The GNU is fighting poverty. The GNU is fighting unemployment. The GNU is fighting inequality. Whilst they are fighting each other. South Africa, what you saw during this process, South Africa, was not conflict in the GNU. What you saw was friction in the GNU. And the scripture says to us that iron sharpens iron. In order for one iron to sharpen another iron, there has to be friction. So, the next time the opposition wants you to believe
Order, honorable members.
conflict.
Order. Order, honorable members. I do think that let's be respectful of each other. When your members have had an opportunity, some of the things that you might have said might have irritated others, and some of the things they are saying may irritate you. I think let's just respect each other. Interjections are allowed, but howling and drowning the member on the platform is not allowed. Honourable member, what's your point of order? Order, honourable members. I want to hear the member who wants to raise a point of order.
Bishop. Sit down, Chair. Speaker.
No, I will make that determination. Can you please raise your point of order? You are, yes, you can continue.
The bishop had a question on which scripture talks
Okay,
about
let-
lions not entering the kingdom of heaven.
Honorable member, you can take your seat. Honorable member, I will ask the member whether he will take your question. If he agrees, he will. If he doesn't, he will continue with his speech. Can you please take your seat?
Talks about drunkards and lions entering the kingdom of heaven.
Honorable member, can you please be disciplined? Honorable member, would you like to answer a question?
No, Honorable Speaker, but the bishop will pray for her. I will
Thank
pray.
you.
Yeah. So, South Africa, it is.
Honorable Source, can you take a moment? Honorable Tlangwini, what's your point of order?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Speaker, I'm just raising your attention to Rule 68. We are indeed on the fiscal framework, and I want to point out the rule of irrelevance and repetition. So the pastor, bishop, or whatever it is, the one that represented Israel, Israel,
Honorable member,
is not sticking to the fiscal framework.
Honorable member, can you please take your seat?
To irrelevance.
I will make a ruling. There is no point of irrelevance in this instance. The member is within his right to make metaphors as he continues with his speech, so as other members have done. I mean, you could have said you are not in a rally when others spoke, but we didn't. We respect members' rights to make, paraphrases or whatever analogy. Order, honorable member, you can proceed.
Honorable Speaker, it is clear that what is usually called higher logic is actually lower logic. South Africa, what you have seen is not conflict in the GNU, it's friction. Iron sharpening iron. And in order for one iron to sharpen another iron, there needs to be friction. And because of that process, the GNU is now sharper. The GNU is now stronger. Happy birthday to the legendary Brenda Fassy's sister. Weekend special.
Order. Order, honorable member. Honorable Tambo, you wanted to raise a point of order. Can you please bring the mic?
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to reiterate the point about relevance because this is torture. We thought there would be an improvement in quality of contribution because at least he's going to church, not prison. But it's worse. We're suffering something worse because of this guy. You are embarrassing us in front of the continent. You are embarrassing us. The whole world is watching us present a third budget. And he has said nothing about the fiscal framework. He doesn't know how much it is. He doesn't know how much is allocated to education. He doesn't know how much is austerity. He doesn't know anything.
So what is your point of order?
You are subjecting us to torture by not ruling on this irrelevance.
Thank you, honorable member.
We're suffering.
Can you take your seat?
Mediocrity.
Can you take your seat? Order, honorable members. Order. Honorable members, order. Honorable members. Honorable Reddy, can you please be in order? Honorable members, you have a right to raise a point of order, but a point of debate cannot be a point of order. You have an opportunity through your members to speak on the podium on your issues, and you cannot cast aspersion on members as and when you like. Let's allow the member to finish his point. Proceed, honorable member.
as I conclude, we will forgive them, for they do not know what they do. As I conclude on a point of relevance, the Patriotic Alliance supports this
Order, honorable member, your time is up.
fiscal framework. I thank you.
Honorable vessels. Order, honorable members. Let's allow honorable vessels to be heard. Honorable vessels.
Die achtbare speaker,
Order, honorable members. Can we please allow honorable vessels on the podium to actually speak? Can you please take a seat, honorable minister? Can you please take a seat, honorable minister? Honorable vessels, can you proceed?
dankie achtbare speaker. Achtbare speaker, die nare realiteit wat blyk uit hierdie fiskale raamwerk is dat Suid-Afrika diep in die moeilikheid is. En hier kan geskree word en hier kan op en af gespring word, maar die realiteit is dat die uitgawes meer is as die inkomste. Dat Suid-Afrika se skuld buite beheer is, dat dit wat ons betaal om dit te finansier, die koste daaraan verbonde, buite beheer is. Dat die behoeftes van Suid-Afrikaners daar buite aan dienste, soos maatskaplike dienste, gesondheidsorg, onderwys, is baie, terwyl die inkomste al hoe minder word. Dit natuurlik weens werkloosheid, en dit natuurlik weens die feit dat daar nie ekonomiese groei is nie. En dan verstaan die MK en die EFF nie die feit dat jy nie kan verwag dat minder as 300,000 Suid-Afrikaners meer as 40% van die persoonlike inkomstebelasting las moet dra, en dan wil jy belastings instel soos weelde belastings en hoër maatskappybelastings, want jy dink daai gaans gaan net aanhou goue eiers lê. Die gaans is moeg. Die gaans gaan nie aanhou om daardie eiers te lê nie. Die eiers raak al hoe kleiner. Die inkomste raak al hoe minder. Ons het ekonomiese groei nodig, en dit is wat hierdie fiskale raamwerk daarstel.
I cannot hear somebody on the platform. What's the point of order? Can you take a seat, sir?
Honourable Speaker, thank you. I rise in terms of Rule 69A. And the members on my right are conversing so loudly, they're creating disorder in the House, and it will do them well to listen to the Speaker because he is talking sense. Thank you, Honourable
Thank
Speaker.
you, Honourable Tambo.
Yeah, thank you, Honourable Speaker. I rise on a point of order because the Honourable member is misleading the House. He says that the economic freedom fighters has called for increasing of taxation to 300,000 people in South Africa. The EFF has never called for it. Just because he knows that white people are the ones who control the wealth in this country, and he feels guilty.
Order.
He assumes that's the EFF position. Can you withdraw that?
Honourable member.
The EFF has never said we must tax 300,000 people only.
Honourable member.
He must withdraw.
Honourable member, when you make a point of order, you do make a point of order in terms of the rule. But when we proceed and engage in the debate, it fails to be a point of order. I've not listened, honourable members, I've not finished my point. I've not finished my point. I have not, Honourable Nhlangwini, I do think we should actually respect each other. Honourable Tambo, I've heard your note and I would come back and rule on the matter. And on Honourable Member Dana, I've also noted your point. That's why I was calling the point of order, because indeed we were drowning the speaker. Honourable Reddy, can you please take your point of order?
Thank you.
Order, honorable member.
Honorable Speaker.
Honorable members, can we please be in order and allow the member to raise his point of order?
Thank you very much. In considering the rule of order raised by my EFF colleague, I'd like you to also consider the fact that the speaker at the podium also mentioned MK, because MK never at any stage called for increased taxation. Thank you very much.
As I've also indicated, I would look at that matter and come back to the House and make a ruling. Honourable member, you can proceed.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Let me explain it. There is 330,000 people in South Africa, registered taxpayers, regardless of their race, that earns more than R1 million a year. That is the totality of people in South Africa earning more than R1 million a year. That includes you. That means that when you call for a wealth tax, you are saying that those 330,000 people out of 27 million registered taxpayers who contribute to 40% of the total personal income tax must be taxed more. You must listen to your own speaker, the Honourable Van Rooyen, that stood here and said there should be a wealth tax. Regardless of that, we need
Order, honourable members.
economic growth
Order,
to get us
Honourable
out of
Vessels.
this crisis.
Honourable Vessels, can you take your seat? What's the point of order, honourable member?
Honourable Speaker, again, the EFF has never called for a wealth tax that pertains to people who earn above 1 million in a threshold. We have called for a taxation of apartheid trusts existing before 1994. We have called for a taxation
Honourable
of
member. Honourable
He must
Tambo.
withdraw. He's misrepresenting the
No.
EFF. He's mistaking the EFF's position again.
Honourable Tambo.
He must withdraw.
Honourable Tambo. I do think that we must separate between points of debates. Order. Order. Honourable members, have you forgotten my earlier point when I said I will come back on this issue? No matter how many times a point has been repeated, it does not mean, honourable members, do you want us to rule on this point or not? If you do, then let's allow the ruling I've made. He spoke in Afrikaans, he was clarifying in English. It doesn't mean that the speaker is not going to make a ruling on the point. Can you, Honourable Vessels, can you proceed with your point of order?
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Speaker, we need economic growth. We need to create wealth. We need the correct policies to do that. But whilst we need to affect this fiscal framework and get the objectives going, it will be in the hands of each state actor. And that means that the prevalent culture of where we have become disponent to each the rand and cent, where it's only important if it's 1 million or 10 million, but we don't care if there's waste of 10,000 rand and 100,000 rand. That culture must stop. If we don't take care of the expenditure and real cost-effective expenditure, we'll never get out of this fiscal crisis. That does mean every rand and every cent must be spent to the benefit of South Africa and each South African. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Beasley.
Honourable Speaker, 1 year into the so-called government of national unity, South Africa finds itself in a crisis. The economy is stagnant. Thousands of South Africans are losing their jobs every day, and poverty and inequality are deepening. According to the latest quarterly unemployment figures, nearly 300,000.
Order, honourable member. There's a point of order. Can you take your seat?
I don't know. Can we please be protected? When other speakers were speaking, we listened.
can we please be protected from the noise? We are not going to take it. And actually, Speaker, Horasa se talente. Kavayar khona Horasa in this house. Rekopa gore or protect the Speaker from the noise. Can the Speaker be allowed to speak? We are not going to take it, little
Order.
Speaker.
Honorable member.
Scream and shout. Can you please protect us from the noise? Thank you, Speaker.
Order, honorable members. Can we allow the speaker on the podium to be heard? Honorable members, order. I also want to hear the member on the podium. Let's allow him to speak. Honorable member.
According to the latest quarterly unemployment figures, nearly 300,000 people lost their jobs. That means 5,000 South Africans will go home today and tell their families that they've lost their jobs. Another 5,000 tomorrow and every working day after that. There are now 8.3 million unemployed South Africans, with a further 3.5 so discouraged that they've given up looking for work. That is 12 million people without opportunity, without support, and without hope. But these are not just numbers. They are lived experience of millions of South Africans, real people suffering under a government that has neglected them. When evaluating the fiscal framework, we must first ask, what does it do to create jobs? Because only sustained economic growth of at least 3 to 4% will lift South Africans out of unemployment. The painful truth is that we have not seen this growth above 1% for many years. Even now, Budget 3.0 projects an overly optimistic but still inadequate growth rate of 1.4%. As long as growth remains this low, the heartbreak of joblessness will persist. This stagnation is not a mystery. It is a result of a government bereft of bold, pragmatic ideas, and one is that it's openly at war with itself. Parties in the GNU spend more time taking each other to court than sitting down to craft meaningful reform. 1 year since its formation, not a single new economic policy has been introduced. Meanwhile, key industries like manufacturing, construction and mining continue to bleed jobs. Honourable Speaker, Action SA was amongst the first to oppose the proposed VAT hike. We said it was immoral to ask the poor to pay more for essentials while corruption goes unchecked.
Order. Can proceed, honourable member.
We welcome the Minister's decision to scrap the VAT increase, and we are proud of the role that we have played in securing this outcome. We also welcome the 7.5 million allocated to SARS over the medium term, an investment Action SA championed. We thank the Finance Minister for this inclusion. Thank you, Minister. Whilst we reject the 22 billion raised through regressive taxes like fuel levy hikes and bracket creep, strengthening SARS is essential. Properly funded SARS can close a tax gap, tackle illicit trade and boost revenue collection by a conservative 50 billion annually. We are encouraged that the Minister has committed to monitoring SARS performance and will provide tax relief in next year's budget if revenue exceeds targets. We cannot keep taxing struggling South Africans while corruption continues in entities like the RAF, Compensation Fund, UIF, and various SETAs. The National Prosecuting Agency must not only be properly resourced, but also much better led. Without a change in leadership and management, the NPA will remain unable to prosecute corruption, public enemy number one. Speaker, in conclusion, this fiscal framework is a GNU budget, and every party in the GNU must be held accountable if jobs continue to disappear and growth fails to materialize. Action SA, as a rational, pragmatic, constructive and consistent party, will support this fiscal framework, not because it's perfect, but because as a country we cannot afford any more delays. We cannot cripple our country. We cannot allow more chaos. Thank you.
The Honourable Swart.
Deputy Speaker, the ACDP welcomes the removal of the very contentious VAT, and we also opposed it. However, this has sadly been replaced by a much maligned fuel levy hike. which can, many have argued, have even a greater impact on South Africans. Can and should this be supported when there was such vociferous opposition to the VAT hike? And if it is to be supported, what about the promised fuel levy review? When is that going to be presented to us? The ACDP has also consistently expressed concerns about the overly optimistic economic growth projections. 1.4%. And yes, we are Christians, we believe in miracles. We join Bishop Saws and we pray and work towards a miracle, but it does seem far distant to even achieve 1%. If you consider that in the past, the economic growth projections have not materialized with devastating impacts on our debt levels. Now, we're having the youth parliament this Friday. We had a youth debate yesterday. Is it fair to give intergenerational debt of 6 trillion rand to the next generation, to the youth that are here? Are they holding us accountable? Where are those voices that are saying we do not accept that intergenerational debt of 1.2 billion rand per day just to service those debts? And it is crucial that the economic growth models are improved. What is needed? The ACDP believes, as many has been set out in the fiscal framework, interventions, infrastructure reform, power and water sector stabilization, logistics efficiency. This is required to achieve higher economic growth. We pray and we work hard towards achieving this so that we can create jobs and address high levels of unemployment. And when one speaks about biblical parables, what are we doing with our talents? What are we doing? Are we being good stewards of every rand that the taxpayer entrusts to us? Those funds are not there to be looted and stolen. They rightfully, as taxpayers, demand value for money. They demand stewardship. They demand servant leadership, which has sorely been lacking in the past. Now, the ACDP, with these reservations, will support this report, but we'll be closely monitoring this because we want to be part of the builders and not the breakers. I thank you.
The Honourable Kwangpa.
Kudala sithetha ngezi performance indicators azitshintshanga because we are debating budget point. You call it 3.0? Okuzalayo asidibani nengqusho thina nomdudo wamasele. Lento siqale apha kwathiwa i-parliamentary process izaba khona to look into proposals. That never happened. Instead, it was hijacked by the ANC outside of the parliamentary process. Parliament did not make sure that process happened. Because up until the process was nullified by the court, it was supposed to be in motion here in Parliament. Siphele isawuphela court. 2, besinqolapha sigilana. Sisiwa sonke sithento ngekho sithi VAT regressive. This is worse than VAT. A fuel levy is worse than VAT because you have no way of mitigating the impact of regressivity in fuel levy increase on the poor. Bazathi xa bebheka phana itaxi izawuincrease, ikhaphetshu lizawuincrease, ubisi luzawuincrease, awunandlela omitigator. Even the zero-rated items are going to increase because of the increase in input costs. The increase are now with a clear conscience. How? I do not like hypocrisy. We do not like hypocrisy. How are we increasing it now when we said VAT was regressive? The worst part of it is the amount of money you are going to generate from fuel levy is minuscule. If you were to compare it with the impact that it's going to have on the economy, the knock-on effect. Secondly is that the other issue is, if you are saying regressive, why are you increasing it if the impact is on the poor and you have no way of impacting that? The other issue, which is very, very important, as process it in and as tengi voters, tengbus, GNU or no GNU. That's the truth. The other issue which is critical is we've always said other jurisdictions such as Ireland, for example, they make it difficult for people to engage in tax avoidance schemes Why? Because their corporate income tax rate stands at about 15%. They say that their income, the income they would generate from that would be next to nothing if they were to do that. Without increasing corporate income tax, you could actually start there. That's an indirect form of taxation, and you'd be taxing the people who should be paying more. Wealth tax, luxury tax, and other issues and other considerations that we should be making so that we do not balance the budget on the backs of the poor, and we do that with a clear conscience. Masingabaqhatha abantu bakuthi bacinge ukuthi ngela xesha besithe sizawukwazi udila nezinye izinto to mitigate the impact of the increase. Now xa senza ngohlobo bazawufika imali yabo. Look at your SRD grant. What is its purchasing power? Have you considered what the purchasing power of other social grants are? Given now what's going to happen because of inflationary increases? No, but we are saying glibly increase it. Books, but we are balancing the budget on the backs of the poor, because with limited resources, what does it mean? We're going to have to reduce social expenditure. Sit with a clear conscience. Masingaphosis, masithethe inyaniso, amasela.
Honorable Zibi. Order, honourable members. Order. Order, honourable members. Honourable Zibi, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Today is an opportunity to move forward. But we need to move forward with clarity and purpose. While the disagreements in recent months have been about revenue measures that tinker with the edges, the most important step is about a different set of issues and steps. The national balance sheet is unsustainable. Over 80% of the revenue collected by SARS pays for 3 items only. Salaries at over 820 billion, debt service costs at over 420 billion at a rate of 1.2 billion rand per day. This will increase if the economy continues to decline. And the social security package at over 440 billion each year. That leaves very little money to invest in the things we need to unlock economic growth. National and local infrastructure continues to choke our economy, together with policy assumptions that still assume we live in the 1960s when we don't. Transnet, which has a weak balance sheet, needs 120 billion to meet its basic mandate. Eskom over 300 billion for transmission and other infrastructure over the next few years. The education and health departments set aside less than 6% of their total budget for capital expenditure. It should be more if we are to produce graduates fit for the modern age and extend critical health services to communities that continue to do without. It is clear from the last few months that these are not the kind of monies we can raise through taxation. We also cannot borrow more when we are paying between 9 and 10% interest on our national debt. So we have to do 3 things. The first is to eliminate waste. It is not just fruitless and wasteful expenditure we have to obsess about, but policy positions that drain money from the fiscals, because we are nervous about the government not owning 100% of public infrastructure. This process has to be immediate, sustained, and purposeful. South Africans do not have time to wait while their political representatives engage in endless discussion. We cannot just talk about pension fund and other private investments in infrastructure. We have to create the shareholding and governance structures to make this possible as fast as possible. Otherwise, we are going to watch our SOCs underperform, weaken, and die, and take the economy down with them. No investor will throw money at SOCs with a history of mismanagement without participating in their governance structures. We must examine carefully the effect of our 3-sphere constitutional scheme. Municipalities are a weak link in the chain because they fail at their most basic tasks, that is providing local infrastructure and services. Rise Mzansi supports this report, but we need to get down to work and get our country out of the hole it has ended up in because of political neglect and inertia. I thank you.
The Honourable Maimane.
Madam Deputy Speaker, today is a significant day for all of us as South Africans. We should ask the question, this is the GNU's first budget. And therefore the question becomes, is the GNU a government of growth and reform, or is the GNU a government of taxes? Budget 1.0 was about 2% VAT hike. 2.0, 0.5% tax hike. Today, 3.0 is effectively about fuel levies, the lack of personal income tax adjustment, and ultimately, as the Minister of Finance has already promised, next year we'll be having a discussion about taxes. I fear it is a missed opportunity for us to really speak about reform. Ultimately, here's my challenge, honorable members. The question we should be obsessed about is not just GDP growth or actually looking at debt. We should obsess about the rate of investment in this country. And on the same budget, it proposes the fact that our rate of investment is at 4.2%. Let me warn you quite starkly. If there's no increase in investment, there'll be no growth, there'll be no money for teachers, there'll be no money for NHI, there'll be no money for ultimately keeping South Africans safe. All we'll end up doing is keeping people at home through grants, civil servants happy through above inflation increases, and ultimately borrowing simply to pay for more borrowing. So fellow South Africans, it's time for us to wake up and smell the coffee. The reality is we need to change. I feel I have sympathy for the Minister of Finance. He's been asked to do something with very little. So I'm here to propose that let's focus on growth initiatives. Let's focus on investment and growth capital formation. Let's ask ourselves the question, why, if the minister puts R1 trillion in infrastructure, no one else is investing? No one. The private sector is not. Foreign direct investment is dried up. Look outside. Ask yourself, how many cranes do you see outside Johannesburg, Cape Town, or Durban? That's the measurement. So let me propose that, Minister, I suggest that actually what we need to do is to be aggressive at declaring economic zones and giving infrastructure support, digital connectivity, and efficient public transport system. Let's be much more aggressive at building an ethical government, because the more crooks we hire, the less we get for money. And Minister, I want to say this categorically. As Build One South Africa, we'll watch this budget go through. But I want to work with you in the inner ear and the outer ear. Because, Emma, unless we reform, we will not get through it. So, Minister, I'm giving you that sense that let's deal with spending reviews, let's fix the inner ear, and let's fix the outer ear. If we fail at that, we will have more unemployment, less jobs. It's time for change.
Your
I
time
thank you
has
very much.
expired. ATM. ATM. We proceed with the next speaker. On order, honourable members. Honourable Galeka Mazibuko.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, let me start by stating that the African National Congress supports the report of the Standing Committee of Finance on the fiscal framework and revenue proposal as presented by the chairperson. This is the second fiscal framework considered by this House. The ANC commends the cooperation from various political parties within and outside the government of national unity for their support for the first fiscal framework report. The resolution of the budget impasse caused by the VAT proposal is a testament of our ability to build consensus despite having contradicting views as public representatives in Parliament and National Executive in the interest of the nation. Honorable Deputy Speaker, a failure of this Parliament to pass the budget will not advance the aspirations of the people and the public service they require. The fiscal framework and revenue proposal provides the content of our country's fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is a critical macroeconomic policy instrument with implications for our development as a country, the economy, the functioning of government and social services provided by government, and this Parliament ought not to be complicit on such a critical process of passing the money bills. the ANC in its manifesto committed to advance and implement a developmental macroeconomic framework which prioritizes fiscal expansion to accelerate our developmental agenda while maintaining fiscal sustainability. For the ANC, the fiscal framework, Honorable Speaker, is about advancing our social transformation agenda as fiscal policy has a redistributive effect of assets and income. South Africa remains the most unequal society, and without the prioritization of the provision of a safety net, over 18 million South Africans will be in severe distress. Hence, the ANC affirms that this fiscal framework is pro-poor, as it increases the social grants above the inflation rate, which will alleviate the cost of living for the poor and have a positive aggregate demand on the economy. The ANC believes the social relief of distress should serve as the basis for the introduction of the basic income grant as part of our comprehensive social security system, which will ensure no one is left behind. We support the fiscal framework because it supports the expansion of the public employment programs, which created 1.8 million opportunities for the youth and unemployed in the 6th administration. We further call on the Minister to ensure adequate fiscal allocations are made to achieve the public employment target of 6.5 million as per the medium-term development plan of the ANC-led Government of National Unity. Over the 31 years of democracy, the ANC has embedded education as the #1 priority to invest in the people. The first and foremost task of empowering the people for self-liberation is education. As said by our former president, Utatu Mandela, that I quote, "Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world." The fiscal framework has continued to prioritize education through an allocation of 19.5 billion for provisional education compensation costs for 5,000 educators posts and to improve the ECD subsidy per child from 17 to 24 rands. This expands access for an additional 700,000 children up to the age of 5 years for early childhood development. The prioritization of early childhood development and the implementation of the Bella Act through compulsory grade R are measures for fundamental transformation, as this will change the level of cognitive development of generations to come. Honorable Speaker, unemployment remains a challenge that requires all social partners to resolve. We welcome the allocation of over 1 trillion for infrastructure development in the medium term as a major catalyst for economic growth. Empirical evidence does demonstrate that infrastructure has a high employment creation effect and creates opportunities for low-skilled workers who constitute a significant component of the unemployed. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the ANC has acknowledged that fixing local government and resolving basic service provisions such as water, waste collection, electricity, and access to serviced sites are critical to improve the quality of life for all, particularly the historically disadvantaged. We welcome the focus of Operation Vulindlela on local government. The efficiency of local government has an impact of the overall economy as activities and inputs to enable productivity of commerce require municipalities. Building a capable local government and resolving the funding disparities through the review of the white paper on local government will enhance the resourcing of local government, which is at the core phase of service delivery. The ANC affirms the importance of fiscal stability, yet recognizing that the country is not facing a fiscal crisis. The ANC has led the discussions on the finding alternative revenue source to enhance our fiscal position, and we will continue to engage various stakeholders and the public on our fiscal policy as a country. Madam Speaker, we have drawn lessons from the 2025 budget impasse. We believe the National Treasury can identify alternative progressive taxation measures to ensure our fiscal position, such as the funding of SARS to collect its debt and tackle illicit financial flows, and introducing tax measures that are redistributive whilst protecting the poor, low-income earners, and the middle strata. We welcome the focus of the South African Revenue Bank on how monetary policy can have a debt stabilizing effect on our debt position. Honorable Speaker, we urge for support of this budget, not the party's political tantrum from organizations that understand nothing about statecraft, constitutional order, or fiscal prudence. Madam Speaker, this parliament is not a TikTok stage. It is not a WhatsApp group of self-proclaimed commissars in red and stolen camouflage. This, Madam Speaker, is the assembly of a democratic republic, and we will not be held hostage by those who confuse constitutional democracy with
Honourable Member, can
revolutionary
you please take your
cosplay.
seat? There is a point of order, Honourable Skosana. We are just waiting for the mic. Yes.
Hello.
Please proceed.
Ngithokoze emhlali ngaphambili. Lapha bokuqala Rule 668. Honorable member ujame ngaphambili la uleya into engasiyo. Ngamanye amagama is casting an aspersion. So ukuthi simasela into leyo ngiba ukuthi ayihoxise msinya. Akakwazi ukuleya mala endlini ebaluleke kangaka. Ngiyathokoza mfundisi.
Thank you, Honourable Member. You refer to 68. That is irrelevance. So I will rule on that. That was not irrelevant. Honourable Member, please proceed.
Honourable Speaker, we are not here to indulge the fantasies of those who mistake noise for power. Honourable Speaker, we are here to support the people's budget. Abantu kudala beyilindile le budget. Kudala bephazanyiswa ngabo abenza umsindo apha eParliament. We are here to represent our people. Once more, the ANC supports the fiscal framework and revenue proposals. I thank you.
The Deputy Minister. Order, Honourable Members. The Deputy Minister of Social Development. Order, Honourable Members. Honourable Members, order.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, that is unrevolutionary and a creature of apartheid. And as we move to expropriate land with null compensation, we should move to null VAT. Honourable Deputy Speaker, we do have a tax on turnover, and and that is operating, but we're not using it enough. The Minister of Finance has said that next year, let us talk about tax. Honourable Minister, we need to talk about null VAT and tax on turnover. And maybe null VAT will take some time, but we need to eradicate all elements of apartheid, and VAT is that one element of apartheid. Al-Jamaa notes that the fiscal framework follows the trend seen in our 30 days of democracy. What continues to be missing is eliminating fat in our budget. 30% of fat in every line item. Honorable Minister of Agriculture, you have a line item for seeds. You give people free seeds, but there's 30% fat in that line item. Look at it. Honorable Minister of Sport, you give free soccer balls. That line item, there's 30% of fat in it. We need to remove it. We need to move to zero-based budgeting, not just adding the inflation figure, even to items departments no longer need. So this is a concern. Another concern is illicit financial flows. And Al-Jamal looks forward to the UN Convention on Tax Injustice in Africa that is taking place late this year and initiated by former President Thabo Mbeki when he was president of the country. It cannot be that the greatest threat to uhuru in Africa and democracies in Africa is illicit financial flows, which robs the poor of much-needed services. Former colonial powers and multinational companies, mainly mining companies, continue to extract 50% of our GDP. In South Africa, it is 50%, and other African countries, it is more than 50%. The people's voices have been split into the ANC, EFF, and MK. This is not what we agreed in the trenches. The GNU was on the radar in the darkest days of apartheid. But factions of a liberation movement betrayed the nation. And we have parties in the GNU who should not be in the GNU. Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Honourable Adams.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, colleagues. You have to spare thought for the Minister of Finance. He's been asked to pull off a miracle with nothing. I don't think I could have done the job, and if we tell the truth, I don't think any of us could. When we speak of 1 trillion rand to be spent on infrastructure, I can't understand why we are not preempting and starting a Zondo commission in advance, because we know what this government is going to do. You're going to steal, and the poor will suffer. The NCC is not here today to deliver a lecture. It's to tell you the truth. This GNU has done nothing for this country but fall from one crisis to the next. The next crisis is around the corner. It's called NHI. The DA will again throw its toys out the cot. Again, you will come begging to smaller parties for support. And then again, you will sell us out to these people, as was the plan. This budget right here does not speak to the needs of our people. It does nothing for the poor in Kailicha, on the Cape Flats, and in Alexandria. This budget is a sellout. And the NCC does not support it, but it will accept it, because we understand. We understand. Speaker,
Order,
can I be
members,
protected?
I am busy protecting you. Honourable members, order.
Because we understand the need to put party politics aside and do the right thing in the interest of the country. But I have a message for the ANC today. I want you to hear me, and you hear me well. We used to sing a song, not the one the young lady mentioned, comes the call to come to stand together and united we shall stand. We believe that we need Afrikaans in our anthem, just not that one. Because that particular song is what you used to sing on your way to kill us. We sang a song for this ANC. We sang a song that we would overcome. Don't make us sing against you, because we will overcome.
Honourable Adams,
we
please
accept
take your
this budget.
seat. Honourable Adams, please take your seat. There's a point of order. Honourable Michalakis.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the member on the podium just pointed to Honourable Alexander and said that was a song that you sang on your way to kill us. Honourable Alexander never killed anyone as far as I know, and I would like your ruling for him to please withdraw it. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable
Speaker.
Member. Honourable Adams, I'm still busy
Oh, sorry,
ruling.
Speaker.
Please take your seat. Honourable Michalakis, I will have to consult the Hansard to check the actual wording and the context in which it was said, and then come back with the ruling. Honourable Adams.
Speaker, if Honourable Michalakis understands the point I'm trying to make, I'm convinced that young lady wasn't in the army. But when I say you, he's well aware of who I'm speaking about. I don't understand why this man needs to absolve himself from the crimes which happened 30 years ago. But being amongst the most oppressed people in the world, we understand how sensitive you are. You carry your oppression really, really well, by the way. Speaker, I'm going to exit now. But to imagine that we came from Mandela to this in 30 years, it's embarrassing. Thank you.
Honourable Mashlatsi. Order, honourable members. Order.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Photo, Africa. Honourable members, the chairperson of Standing Committee for Finance has the audacity to benchmark our fiscal path with Germany. As if we are not haunted by the ghost of Berlin Conference, where Europe, including Germany, caved Africa like meat. Today we are offered a fiscal framework that reflects that the same colonial arrogance, one that served the capital, not our people. This 2025 fiscal framework is not the people's budget. It's for the elite. A high increase in fuel levy, knowing very well that it will hit the working poor hardest. Taxi fare rise, food price spike, and every household feels the pressure. But still, no wealth tax, no land tax, no real action on multinational corporation profit or illicit financial flows. Why are we always punishing the majority for the crisis they did not create? Chairperson, if you truly admire Germany, why didn't you borrow their commitment to state-led industrial policy, their investment in skills, manufacturing, and infrastructure? Instead, we are handed austerity dressed up in economic reform, a recycled script from Western financial institutions. As UAT, we reject this framework because it's an anti-poor. Because it's anti-poor in effect, colonial in spirit, and neoliberal in form. UAT called for people's budget, wealth distribution, investment in township and rural economies, and sovereign African fiscal model rooted in dignity and justice, not dictated by foreign capital or bond markets. We will not balance the book on the back of our people. We refuse to sacrifice the soul of the nation for applaud a credit rating agency. We say no to this report, not in our name, not in Africa. Katni mambo.
Honourable Minister of Tourism.
Deputy Speaker, honourable members.
Order, honourable members. Honourable members, order.
I'm going to get brain damage of all the noise. The fiscal framework, the third iteration of Budget 2025, reflects both progress and a painful compromise. While the Minister of Finance succeeded in absorbing a 69 billion rand shortfall without entirely dismantling social or infrastructure spending, we cannot ignore that the price of political consensus has come at a cost to our people. We've seen political parties shout victory over the scrapping of the 0.5% VAT increase, but very little reflection on what does that actually means. Gone with it were vital reforms, the expansion of zero-rated food items, above inflation grant increases, and a relief for bracket creep. Yes, this budget avoids collapse, but it's also a warning light. The real work lies ahead, reforming the way we build our budgets. The Good Party has long advocated for zero-based budgeting, a reform finally echoed by the Minister. It's time for us to stop carrying forward inefficiencies and waste, allocating funds based on what South Africans need. We must settle the issue of the basic income grant once and for all. It sustains life and it restores dignity. And this is not a radical idea, not at all. It is the bare minimum in a country defined by extreme inequality and poverty. Deputy Speaker, this budget shows us what happens when politics trumps policy. While parties jockey for power, millions remain hungry, millions remain unemployed. So today's vote is not whether budget 3 or 2 is marginally better than the other. There's no going back. We will support this framework, not because it is perfect, but because South Africans can no longer wait. We cannot ask the poor of this country to carry the burden of grandstanding. The next step is not the responsibility alone of the Minister of Finance to grow this economy. It is the responsibility of the whole executive of this country. And every minister must come with their growth plan to Parliament as soon as possible. The responsibility is that of the whole of government, not only the Minister of Finance. We support this. Thank you.
Honourable Burke.
Madam Deputy Speaker, we have a full sitting of the House to debate this report. Everyone's here. And at the risk of sounding unparliamentary, we should do this more often. It's nice to be here. And if I'm being honest, the EFF joining our court case to oppose a VAT increase and then expropriating its success without compensation just adds to the atmosphere. If there are those that still question our cooperation with the ANC, if there are individuals that still ask what we've attained in this government, what we dare dream to achieve in years ahead on this journey, let us put focus and point them to this fiscal framework. It's a story that runs far deeper than the headlines of too much expenditure, too much debt, and too little economic growth. It's a document born in concealment, raised in conflict, and matured on compromise. It is the bottom line, Madam Deputy Speaker, not just of our nation's finances, but of what the DA is willing to stand up for and what it will not tolerate. This framework draws a line, not in the sand, but in the consciousness of every South African, a line that says that even if you never voted for us, we will continue to fight for you. We will remain in the room, even if there are those vying for us to leave so that they can raise your taxes in peace. This document shows that we'll continue to ask uncomfortable questions, such as questions about the seaters, and we'll ask them again and again until things start to change. We will protect business and we will protect the poor, because despite what some on my left would say, the two are not mutually exclusive. In fact, often they are aligned. Madam Deputy Speaker, There were many that predicted that this government would not survive its first budget cycle. There were many who indicated that the DA would not be able to stop a VAT increase. And after we last debated a fiscal framework in this House, most concluded that the DA was not going to succeed and that it was in fact leaving this arrangement. But here we are. We remain. What has left is a VAT increase. And year two in this budget, we see billions in infrastructure investment. We see an employee ghost audit. And we see a kicking off of a comprehensive spending review. We have succeeded. This is to be noted, but not to be celebrated. Because even as we speak, millions of South Africans are not yet winning. And while we in the DA have succeeded in avoiding the cost of goods going up, we've not yet implemented the real economic reforms needed to make the vast majority of people better off. And we are a country with challenges from corruption to inequality to unemployment that are so vast that are perhaps only exceeded by our relentless persistence and our boundless potential as a people. But I want to be clear. The DA does support this fiscal framework. We are glad of the victories it contains. And while we support it, we're not blinkered or myopic. We need reform faster. And as much as we support Project Vulindlela, it's too little, it's too slow. Treasury is optimistically predicting 1.4% economic growth. That is not to be celebrated, that is to be improved. So the response of the DA to this fiscal framework is to march on to the next hill and then the next. To fight on until we're all living in a country where we need two hands to count economic growth and only one hand to count unemployment. Make no mistake, this forward march will not be easy. Just as they told us we would not be able to stare down a VAT increase, there are those that will tell us that the problems we confront are too complex, that they are endemic, that they are structural, and we can't fix our ports, we can't fix our public service or even our potholes. But we will prevail in that fight for the same reason that we prevailed in this budget battle. It's because we have the facts on our side. It's because we have sensible economic policy on our side. And most importantly, it is because we will have the prosperity-starved people of South Africa on our side. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, the DA supports this fiscal framework. And if things go to plan, we will support 4 more that includes rational economic policy.
The Honourable Molefe.
Marara araranela pele. Motlotlegi motlatsa Musa Khotla tla ke go lebogela tšhono eno ya gore le nna ke latlhele tshwarelo gonyane. E setse le malatsi a le 71 71 days. Puso ya lefatshe leno la rona la Afrika Borwa e simolotse ngwaga o montšhwa wa matlotlo mme go sena ka botekanyetso e tlhomameng e dumeletsweng ke lekgotla leno la kokoano bosetšhaba. Motlotlegi tona ya matlotlo le lefapha la gagwe la matlotlo ba paletswe mo makgetlong a le mabedi go lere tekanyetso kabo e neng e ka dumelelwa ke kokoano setšhaba eno. Maiteko a bona a iteile se fololetse mo makgetlong a le mabedi ka gore tona ya matlotlo o ne a batla go rwesa bahumanegi ba koba di magetleng ba ba setseng ga jaana ba rwele joko ya botlhokatiro mokgweleo wa koketso ya lekgetho lo lo itsegeng ka leina la VAT. Mo lekgetlong leno la boraro, tona ya matlotlo o buile gape go leka go falosa ka botekanyetso ya ngwaga ono. Sebe sa phiri ke gore ka botekanyetso eno e ya maiteko a boraro ke tlhakantsuku ya moroko le bose. Tekanyetso kabo eno e ikaegile ka koketso ya lekgetho ya theko ya lookwane le le tsamaisang dipalangwa, fuel levy. Koketso eno e santse e tlile go ama bone bahumanegi ba le badiri ka gore dituelo tsa dipalangwa le theko ya dijo di tlile go oketsega. Rona re le ba mokgatlo wa Mkhonto wa SEC re ipotsa gore go reng tona ya matlotlo a ganella mo go oketseng makgetho a tlileng go oketsa tshotlego ya batho ba e leng gore ba setse ba imelwa ke botlhokatiro le bohumanegi. Rona re ne re a lebelele makgetho a tla oketsang lotseno la puso ka go kgethisa bahumi ba e leng gore bohumi jwa bona bo kgontshitswe ke melao ya malobo ya tlhaolele. Motlotlegi Wessels, lefatshe la rona le aparetswe ke kobo e ntsho ya botlhokatiro. Botlhokatiro bo ka bohumanegi. Botlhokatiro bo bitsa tlala. Tlala e dira gore batho ba tshabelwe ke malwetse. Tlala e pateletsa batho go senyetsa ba bangwe. Tlala e thupa malapa. Tlala e ntsha bana mo dikolong. Tlala e ntsha bana mo magaeng a bone e ba dira bakopi mo mebileng. Tlala e tsenya bana le bagolo ka ntlo le fitshwana. Rona re le ba Mkhonto wa SEC re ne re solofetse gore tona o tla dirisa tšhono eno ya ka botekanyetso ya boraro go lwantshana le botlhokatiro. Segolo se tonna botlhokatiro jwa bana ba ba falotseng lokwalo la matriki le ba ba weditseng dithuto tsa bone tsa university. Re swabile nko go feta molomo. Re ne re solofetse go le gontsi. Re ne re solofetse gore tona ya matlotlo le puso ba tlhaloganya mathata le tshotlego e setšhaba se se ntshonyana se kamakamaneng le ona. Kwa ntle ga modimo wa boikanyo o gogileng borraetsho mo dinageng tsa lenyora, puso ke yona e rweleng mo magetleng maikarabelo a tshepo ya bofelo ya bana ba mmala wa sebilo. Go palelwa gabedi go lereka botekanyetso e tlhomameng e lwantshang botlhokatiro le lehuma ga se phosonyana e senang ditlamorago mo bathong. Go bontsha go tlhoka maikarabelo a puso mo setšhabeng se se beileng tsholofelo ya sone ya go tswa mo tshotlegong le bohuma mo go yone. Go bontsha go tlhoka boikanyego jwa puso go ntsha batho le bana ba bone mo tlaleng. Go bontsha go tlhoka ga boikanyego jwa puso go ntsha batho le bana ba bone mo tlaleng. Setšhaba se sa rona se tlhoka boetapele jo bo tla kgonang go tsaya ditshwetso tse di maleba tsa go lwantsha botlhokatiro le bohumanegi. Setšhaba sa rona se tlhoka boetapele jo bo tla tsayang ditshwetso tse di maleba tsa go godisa ikonomi ya rona gore e kgone go fa batho ditiro tse di tla fedisang botlhokatiro, tlala le lehuma. Ka botekanyetso e ya ngwaga wa 2025 e ne e le tšhono ya gore puso e re bontshe tsela ya kgolo ya ikonomi, tsela ya go fetsa tlala le go thujwa ga malapa ke tlala. Tona le lefapha ba tshamekile ka tšhono eno. Re ne re reeditse ka tlhoafalo re lebile gore marara a leng teng a re le mo go one a tla rarabologa. Mokgatlo wa Mkhonto wa SEC ga o ikamanye gotlhelele le tekanyetso kabo ya boraro ya ngwaga wa 2025. Ke go leboge Musakgolo.
Honorable Makubela.
Honorable members, we stand here to emphasize that the fiscal framework and revenue proposals tabled before this august House are not austerity, but contain redistributive and expansionary budget that advances transformation. This budget is the people's budget and it will work for you. Sitigini lapho emakhaya, lolu phakelo timali lolu, lesilindlulisako kulendlo yesichamthetho. Ngulelo lelitawusebentela nine nisemakhaya. Litawenda timpilo tenu tibe ngcono. Inhlangano ya African National Congress lenguhulumende walolusuku iyanithembisa ukuthi le budget lesikhuluma ngayo namuhla lesithi ibudget yebantfu itawenda ukuthi timpilo tenu tithutfuke. Ngisho njani uma ngisho so kuthi ingcenye yayo leliphakelo timali leli imali le yatuke tinsita letitawusita ebantfu itawuya kutempilo itawuya tuke mfundvo kanye futhi itawenda ematfuba emsebenti latawenda kutsi emashishini lamancane akhule. Bantfu basemakhaya ngithi kini ningabalaleli laba labafika itolo laba labangadadi ukuthi baye embili noma baya phambili noma baye emuva. The ANC has a track record on maintaining the fiscal discipline and stability that is what the economy needs. The ANC is a government that needs to be trusted because its track record speaks for itself. We are committed to ensuring that there are modalities that will cushion the poor who are the most vulnerable. We trust this government and National Treasury will come up with mechanisms that will ensure that we mitigate against the high cost of living. Fellow South Africans, we stand here to dispel the notion that Black economic empowerment is negatively impacting on the economic growth of this country. It is an undeniable fact that BEE has contributed to the acceleration and the redistribution of wealth and income through various progressive policies and legislation. Without broad Black Economic Empowerment Act and the Employment Equity Act, the pace of transformation in workplaces would have been lagging, as some private sector players have blatantly refused to implement these progressive acts. And they continue to think that empowerment means only the few privileged must continue to accumulate wealth by marginalizing the majority. This is a glaring fact. Without the implementation of these acts, the ownership patterns of the economy remain skewed to the majority. Malunga lahloniphekile, singu-African National Congress, sithi lo mthetho lesawuphasisa kuleli parliamente, kule administration lendlulile, which is the 6th administration, lobitwa nge-Public Procurement Act. Ngiwo mbamba, lotawenda kutsi bomake, ebantfwana labasha, nebantfu labaphila nekukhubateka, which is the women, youth, and persons with disabilities, babekelwe ekatse, which is their set-asides. Lotawenda kutsi, ebantfu bakhone kutsi bafinyelele malula, kutsi bakhone kutsi batiphilise. Lokhu kukhombisa kutsi tsine sisedvude nekuphumelela kwebantfu bonke kule Ningizimu Afrika. Siliparlamente nelikomiti lelibukene nekuphakela kwetimali. Sicela kutsi ngqongqoshe welitiko kanye nedepartment yakhe kutsi abaphangise basheshe bende kutsi regulations la support the implementation of the Public Procurement Act asheshe afike kuze kutsi ebantfu bethu bahlomule. Honorable members, South Africa's financial sector is a concentrated sector with 4 banks controlling over 80% of the sector. Bantu baseNingizimu Afrika kumele kuthi balade iqiniso kuthi emabhange aqhubeka njalo nokwenda kuthi kube lukhuni kutfolwa imali tekusungula emabhizinisi lamancane. Asithi nje pheceleti emabhange akafuni kuboleka ebantfu imali ukuthi basungule emabhizinisi. This is an anomaly relative to other emerging economies. In our oversight on the banking sector, after receiving inputs from most of the banking institutions, we found that credit allocation does not support emerging economic players, mainly the SMMEs sector. Rather, the banks prefer allocating for the short-term financing due to the high profitability, such as vehicle finance. Malunga la hloniphekile, walendlu yesishayamithetho. I must remind you that the lack of support provided to the SMMEs by the banks was glaring even through the COVID pandemic, despite that the government had made guarantees. Sawuqhubeka thina silikomiti sisishayamithetho ukuthi sende ukuthi ebantfu bakhona ukuthi bafinyelele and this sector itransformeke. Because ngaphandle kwale sector lena angeke sikhone kukhulisa live lethu nemgogodla wale live lethu. Silikomiti leta timali sithi siyagcizelela ukuthi our state-owned enterprises, which play a critical role in the network industries as a critical growth driving focus, without their productivity and efficiency, their potential will be negatively impacted. Honorable members, sithi ema state-owned enterprises angumgogodla wale live leli laseNingizimu Afrika. Sithi singuhulumende angeke siwayekele siwabekele eqathatha. Sitawubuka tinsita letawenda ukuthi sisungule ema-private public partnerships latawenda ukuthi angafi. Singu-African National Congress siyasho sithi singebantfu leningabathemba bantu baseNingizimu Afrika. Our track record speaks for itself. African National Congress, we have ensured that there is fiscal discipline and we ensure that fiscal discipline is maintained in the country. Sibekile thina indvuku ebandla. Ebantfu bethu bayakwati ukuthi thina bangasethemba. Ngaloko ke sithi African National Congress siyalisupporta loluphaka lotimali siyabonga.
The Minister of Finance.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, honorable members, Honorable Alexander was correct. We have had a painful journey to arrive to this date where the fiscal framework is being approved. It has been a painful journey. Definitely from the Treasury perspective, we've drawn a number of lessons. But I suspect also members of this House must draw a number of lessons as to how in practice are we going to manage the debates around the fiscal framework moving forward. It's quite an important point. I'm raising that point because it's quite critical. It seems to me, over the next 4 years, that's how we're going to manage each other. What is then, in the light of that, let me deal with some conceptual issues. What does a fiscal framework involves? A fiscal framework involves the envelope which the Minister of Finance tables and says, this is the envelope. All the expenditure has going to operate within this envelope. What are the elements of that envelope? The elements of that envelope is revenue. How much are we going to raise? Is borrowing. How much are we going to borrow? Against that revenue, how much are we going to spend? That's the envelope which we're dealing with.
As part of that, we need some forecasting, as members are saying. Let me just say to Honorable Swart, there's no incentive on Treasury to over-forecast. Precisely because if we over-forecast, we're short-changing ourselves. It's better for Treasury not to over-forecast so that at the end of the year, we seem good by collecting more revenue than we projected. So, honorable members, when they deal with the budget in terms of the fiscal framework, they've got also to strike that balance. I've made the point in the past, and I continue to make it. The size of the debt is not the important factor, it's the capacity of the economy to service that debt. If the economy is not growing, that's why nobody worries in certain countries they've got more than 100% debt to GDP, because the economy has the capacity to service the debt. What is this budget about? It's about three issues. It's about three issues I want to talk about. The first one is the notion that this budget is an austerity budget. There's a difference between a dictionary meaning and a public finance meaning. What does the literature say? What does the literature conceptually say? Austerity is when you raise taxes or you cut expenditure in order to finance a debt reduction. That's important. What is the objective? Is to deal with debt reduction. That's not what this budget is trying to achieve. What this budget is trying to achieve, those of us, if you look over the past 4 months, what we've been fighting about is not how much we cut the budget, it's about how much are we going to increase the budget and how are we going to fund that increase. That's the debate that has been missing. The debate is how much are we going to increase the expenditure and how are we going to fund that? And a number of people have missed that. So this budget is not austerity. We're increasing taxes not to focus on debt, but to focus on funding social services, education, health, and so on. We made the point from day one that in some of these hospitals, people have got in health departments in provinces. I don't know where do we come from. In any province, you go to a department of health, they will tell you one major point, that they've got accruals which have accumulated over years. They can't pay. We were raising money exactly to assist those health departments.
Order, honourable members.
That's what this budget is about. It's to deal with those issues. We tell on members of this House that last year, health departments have lost about 9,000 health workers. They couldn't replace them. And in the debate and the noise about that, little debate is focusing on how do we deal with that crisis in health services. It's the crisis everybody is going to come after the budget. Say, this government is not delivering. Look at how hospitals look like. Forgetting that they blocked a budget here, which is intended to achieve exactly that objective. This budget is redistribution. No doubt about that. No doubt about that. Despite all of these things, we've managed to increase social grants by more than inflation. It's a fact. It's a fact. We're spending more than 61% on the social wage. That's what this budget is trying to do. The third point we want to raise, this budget is about growth. This budget is about growth. I sympathize with the colleague from the party, is UNCC. We said, look, we appreciate you've got R1 trillion. At least he recognizes that. His worry, correctly so like everybody should as his honored members, is that money going to be utilized efficiently and effectively? That should be the concern of these members. But you can't fault the budget. You can't fault the budget. Don't fault the budget. 409 billion rand is going to spend on the transport infrastructure over the next 3 years. You can't fault this budget. If it's not spent properly, that's your duty as members of parliament to do your oversight. That's a duty. Discharge this responsibility. Members of parliament has got to make sure that this R1 trillion on infrastructure is spent effectively and efficiently. As I conclude, we have done all of this in a fiscally sustainable way. All of this, we have done it in a fiscally sustainable way. There's no doubt about that.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Order, Honourable Members. Order, Honourable Members. I now recognize the Honourable Chief Whip of the largest party. Order, Honourable Members.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to all honorable members and Deputy President. I propose that this fiscal framework report be adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Chief Whip. The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections to the adoption of the report? Order, Honourable Members. Order. There's objections from the MK Party, the EFF. Are there any further objections? Can you get the microphone to the Chief Whip of the opposition, please?
Thank you, House Chair. We are calling for division. Thank you.
A division having been called, the bells will be rung for 5 minutes. Honourable members, please take up your allocated seats and settle down. Honourable members, take up your allocated seats. Order, honorable members. There are still members there at the back who are not seated. Please take up your seats. Honorable members, order. The Speaker has determined that in accordance with the rules, a manual voting procedure will be used for this division. Firstly, in order to establish a quorum, I would request the table to confirm that we have the requisite number of members physically present in the chamber to take this decision. Party whips will then be given an opportunity to confirm the numbers of the members present. Order, honorable members. Order. They will confirm the number of the members present and indicate if they vote for or against the question. A member who wishes to abstain or vote against the party vote may do so by informing the chair. Having confirmed that we do have the requisite quorum, we will now proceed. The question before the House is that the 2025 fiscal framework and the revenue proposals and the report of the Standing Committee on Finance be agreed to. Voting will now commence, and the doors to the chamber will remain locked, and members will not be allowed to enter until the voting is concluded. Failure to observe this may lead to a referral to the Powers and Privileges Committee. Whips, could you confirm the number of your members present in the chamber and indicate if they vote for or against the question? The ANC.
Thank you. The ANC chair with 145 members in attendance vote in favor of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. The Democratic Alliance.
Thank you, House Chair. The DA with 80 members in the House votes in favor.
Thank you. MK Party. Order, honorable members.
House Chair, MK Party, Hirvashoni Penkiba 49, High Ala report, we vote against.
Thank you. The EFF.
Thank you, Chair. The EFF, we are 38 in the House and we are voting against.
The IFP.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The IFP with 14 members, we vote in favor.
The PA.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. The Patriotic Alliance feels like we are 90, but in essence, we are 9 in favor. Thank you.
Order, honorable members. Order. The Freedom Front Plus. Order, honorable members. I can't hear the member.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The EFF Plus are 5 members in the House voting in favor.
Thank you. Action SA.
Actually, say 4 members, Radumela.
The ACDP.
Thank you, House Chair. The African Christian Democratic Party has 2 voted in favor.
The UDM.
Thank you, House Chair. The UTM with 2 in the House in favor.
Order. Order, honorable members. Order. Rais Mzansi. Order, honorable members. Order, honorable members. You can have that discussion outside with the honorable members. Rais Mzansi.
Thank you very much, Chair. Rais Mzansi, 2 members in support.
Pausa.
Build One South Africa with 2 members in the House abstains.
ATM. Order, honorable members. Al Jama.
Al-Jabbar, one in the House, we vote in favor.
The NCC. Order, honorable members.
2 members, Chairperson, we accept.
The PAC. The PAC.
One in the House voting in favor.
Thank you. The UAT.
UAT, Kilimon, Yahana.
Order, honorable members. Good.
One in favor.
Is there any member that wishes to abstain or vote differently to their political party? Please indicate now. Thank you, honorable members. Thank you. Honorable members, the voting session is now closed. Order, honorable members. Honorable members, the outcome of the division is as follows. There's 2 abstentions. 88 voted against and 268 voted in favor. The question is accordingly agreed to. Yes, I indicated 2 abstentions. Thank you. Honorable members, I now request honorable members to stand and to wait for the presiding officer and the mace to leave the chamber. That concludes the business for the day and the House is adjourned.